So today I thought we'd do something a little bit different. Uh, so these are some of my favorite games of the last 20-ish years, and I thought I would go through them and sort of explain my reasons for liking them, what I like, what I don't like, and put them in a tier list so you can better understand where I'm coming from in terms of gaming and my history of playing video games. And we're going to start with Disco Elysium. So, Disco Elysium, kind of slept on title. Unfortunately, the creators were kind of fucked. There was a hostile takeover in that company, and the original creators were forced out and now no longer receive any of the funds that they get from the game, which is really unfortunate. Normally, I wouldn't promote piracy. I'm still not going to promote it, but I'm just saying I would prefer the shitty company doesn't get more money from a thing they didn't create. Anyway, about the game. The story of Harry and Kim is really compelling, and this investigation of a mystery murder that you would think so simple, taking hours and hours, spanning the entirety of the city of Revachol. The music flowing in and out, changing seamlessly, sticking in my brain like an earworm, haunting my nightmares. The diverse array of supporting characters that are a little divisive, depending where you stand. And then wrapping it up in this interesting story with interesting elements that they don't entirely explore but leave up to player interpretation. For instance, the cryptids and the mist. I think it's called the mist. This entire sub-story of a mist that kills people in some way. I've never really got into it very much, so I don't really remember what that side of the story was about, but it was always so interesting and compelling, and seeing tidbits into Harry's mind and his psyche, understanding where he's coming from and what had happened to him was really interesting. And then the ending with Kim and the rest of the group, and the good ending, was really nice. Gameplay, as simple as it might be, was interesting and allowed for a wide array of choices, and a little sense of progression with the skill tree was a lot of fun to play with. I'm going to put Disco Elysium in a solid fantastic. Now, Cuphead. Cuphead is an interesting love song for old rubber hose animations, Disney animations from the 1930s, which hold a dear place in my heart. I love rubber hose animation. The music in Cuphead I listened to for months, I'll be honest. I adored the old music that was in Cuphead. The gameplay was simple, the story was simple, but it served well because the challenges you face were indeed challenging, and the struggle of fighting some of the bosses and dying over and over and over and barely seeing that progression bar get further across was so satisfying, because it meant you had gotten better, you'd gotten one step closer to beating this fucker. I haven't played the DLC, I'll be honest, but I enjoyed the base game for months. I love Cuphead. It does everything it's supposed to. However, there are some bosses that I feel are a little bit bullshit. Just a tad bit too annoying, or just I think they should have been tweaked just a tad. And there are a few issues in the... Well, actually, I will say my biggest issue is the levels that don't have the boss fights. Those were the most frustrating and most difficult part of Cuphead, and I hated them so much. And needing them to be able to get more stuff to help you in the boss fights was just annoying. So I'm going to put Cuphead at a solid awesome. Superliminal, a heavily slept on title that I feel like not a lot of people played or have seen, but very interesting, very introspective, very unique. I've never seen a game that uses perspective in a way that Superliminal does. It's a mind fuck, but it's done so well to service a story that is seemingly non-existent to start, but then at the end it ties it back into a nice, meaningful message of essentially, you got this. Keep going. Try again. How about you look at it from a different angle? And for that, I gotta put Superliminal at an awesome, because it touched me to my core at the time that I played it. Controversial title, Cyberpunk 2077, a game I honestly really enjoyed even on release. I played Cyberpunk 2077 on the original Xbox One when it released in 2020, and I'll be honest, when I played it for the first time, I didn't run into a single problem. I played it from start to finish and got the Arasaka ending where I went to the moon. I wasn't a big fan of that ending, but after replaying it recently on PC, with some issues here and there, even after the DLC was released and all the patches were released, DLC I still am yet to play, I did still thoroughly enjoy Cyberpunk 2077. The story of V trying to make a legacy for themselves was compelling at most points. I feel like the story falls apart when it's a timeline. Oh no, if you don't do this quickly, you're gonna die. You need to hurry up. A story like that does not fit an open world because you can just not do the main story for literal years in game time and nothing happens. So in my opinion, that could have been better, especially with all the different side quests. That being said, the side quests with Panam and River were so good and so compelling. I loved them so much, and they had such good writing, such good character work. You got to feel for the characters and the relationships. The voice acting was so good, especially coming from Panam. I love those characters so much. But then the gameplay falls apart when you realize, oh, it's just bigger number versus enemies. Get bigger number, get better. Rather than, I'm going to carefully put my points into the skill tree so I can get the perfect build so I can become ultra powerful. No, I put everything into knives and pistols and didn't feel like I did anything through the entire game. I was just one-shot headshotting everything, didn't have a care in the world. So I'm going to put Cyberpunk 2077 at a solid good. It was good, I enjoyed it, but it has a lot of issues. I hope one day we'll get to what was promised to us. Now for a game that was the entire reason I got the PS4. Now I had just a regular Xbox One for, I think it was almost 5 years until I got a PS4. Got Spider-Man as one of my first games, along with Shadow of the Colossus and Bloodborne. Now I love Spider-Man. He's one of my favorite superheroes, period. And it really, Spider-Man feels like Spider-Man. It doesn't feel like the early 2000s PS2 Spider-Man games based off the Sam Raimi movies, which were really bad, and Spider-Man games I grew up with personally. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the combat. The story could have been cut down. There was a lot of filler, in my opinion, but I enjoyed it. The open world stuff got a little old pretty quickly, especially with having like 15 bases, each with 4 different types and every district and all the extra stuff just to platinum the game. It got really annoying. The DLC was fun and interesting, but I don't know why they decided to separate it into 3 separate stories, 3 separate DLCs. They could have just done it in a single story. I mean, money, I guess, but yeah, I enjoyed the game, but I think it could have been a lot better, so I'm going to put it in a great. Now, Black Ops 3, a game that I think was the tipping point of the Call of Duty franchise. I think after Black Ops 3, the entire Call of Duty franchise just fell off. I love Black Ops 2, I love Black Ops 1, I loved World at War, I loved all those games. I never played the Modern Warfare franchise. I was too late for that. I actually started with Black Ops 2, and then went to 3 immediately, and played all the Black Ops after that. I played Black Ops 3 for way too long. I played the story through to 100%. I got all the collectibles, got all the upgrades, maxed out every weapon. I loved the story originally, because I found it fun. I used to not play games for the story. I played campaigns, for the fun of them. After replaying Black Ops 3 a couple of years ago, Zombies is still absolutely fantastic and one of my favorite versions of Call of Duty Zombies. But the multiplayer, I hate multiplayer games, especially Call of Duty multiplayer. The campaign was pretty fucking bad.
Train go boom.
So I'm gonna put it a solid good. I'm gonna skip over Doom Eternal, and I'm gonna go to Dark Souls. And I'm gonna come back to Doom Eternal later. Dark Souls 3 was my introduction to the entire Souls franchise. I'd never played Bloodborne, I never played Demon Souls, never played Dark Souls 1 or 2. The first one I played with Dark Souls 3. And I sucked. It was so hard for me. I'm really glad at the time I had friends that would play with me and introduce me to all the concepts and help me and teach me things. In my first game, I completely screwed myself because I killed everybody in Firelink Shrine thinking it would have no repercussions, completely soft locking myself into a shitty build that couldn't even kill a single mob, until later I came back and did another run. That was my run for the entire duration of my Souls playthrough. I've gotten up to, I think, New Game Plus 5. I love Dark Souls 3 to death as my introduction to Dark Souls. There's a lot of problems I have with some of the little enemies, some of the invasion mechanics, some of that stuff I don't really like, and I feel like could have been better, especially the invasions around Anor Londo and that area after Pontiff Sulyvahn. All the bosses I love to death, even the bullshit. Dark Eater Midir, Slave Knight Gale, Pontiff Sulyvahn, Soul of Cinder, all those bosses, absolutely love them, absolutely love fighting them. Dark Souls is as close as you can get to a masterpiece, but it does have some glaring issues that I don't like, so I'm going to put it in fantastic. Now, Black Ops 2, jumping back to Call of Duty, was my entry Call of Duty. I love Black Ops 2. The story is fantastic, it's compelling, it's got hidden bits of choice where you can actively make choices rather than just pressing a button prompt to make a choice. You could do certain things in a certain way that affect the story. For instance, there's this one section where you're in a car and an airship goes down and creates an explosion with fire, and you can either avoid the fire and save your companion Harper's face, or burn Harper's face, which can lead to different outcomes in different parts of the story. And depending on what you do, certain parts of the story, it can have different outcomes and different endings. Certain characters can die or stay alive. Even when you have a section where you play as Menendez, you can choose to kill or save some people. Even as Woods, you can choose to kill or save Alex Mason if you shoot him in the head or the leg, which is so fucking cool, and I wish more games would take note of that and do that sort of thing. Now, the multiplayer I never was really good at. I love playing Black Ops 2, even though I hated multiplayer because I am notoriously bad at multiplayer in games, but I loved playing multiplayer in Black Ops 2. All the maps were really fun, the weapons were a lot of fun and very satisfying to use. I had a lot of enjoyment out of game mode I would normally fucking hate. Now, zombies. Black Ops 2 was the first zombies I ever played, and it genuinely terrified me when I first played it. Transit scared the shit out of me as a little child. I love Transit. It's one of my favorite maps, but I know how bad it is. I only love it because of nostalgia. Now Town and all the other maps in the base Zombies game were a lot of fun. I enjoyed them, and it was what I was stuck with for a long time, because my dumb child brain got Black Ops 2 for the Wii U, which had I not known that prior, I would have never guessed they would have released Black Ops 2 for the Wii U. So I was stuck with that for years until I got my computer and my Xbox and played them on that, and got the DLCs and played the DLCs, did all the story for most of them. Origins, by far my favorite map ever made. I loved Origins, and for all the things put together, I'm going to put Black Ops 2 in great. Now, Dead Space. I never played the original Dead Space, but I have seen a lot of footage and a lot of comparisons to the original, and the amount of things it changed for the better or kept the exact same even if it didn't need to was amazing. Everything about the Ishimura was kept close enough to the original that even if it was changed, it was changed for the better. The story was great. I loved it. There were some problems with it. I didn't like Hammond. His death was kind of eh. I love the use of Elizabeth Cross as like the grounding of Isaac's psyche, as to make sense of how Isaac was seeing Nicole throughout the Ishimura, despite her having been dead for a long time. I thought it was a great way to do that. I loved Dead Space Remake. I loved all the weapons. I loved the combat. I loved the creepiness and spookiness of the monsters, the necromorphs in the game. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every moment of playing Dead Space. I 100%ed it. I did it in impossible mode. I did it with just the plasma cutter. I love Dead Space Remake, and for what it was, I'm gonna put it in fantastic. Now, DMC 5, Devil May Cry 5, is my first Devil May Cry. I've never played the other Devil May Cries. It was my entry. I'd heard good things about it. Decided to play it for myself. Took me a while to play it, because I'm not very good at those hack and slash, make sure you hit the right combo type games. I'm horrible with making sure I hit the right combos. It's honestly why I avoid fighting games most of the time, because I hate having to input combos to be better. It's just not what I like personally, but I did enjoy the combat of Devil May Cry, even if it took me a long time to understand. The story was I didn't really care too much about the story because I didn't really understand it. I'll be honest, watching Maxor's incorrect summary of Devil May Cry 5 helped me understand the story more than watching the game itself. So that says something to me about the story, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found the combat fun. The music is god tier. I fucking love the music. I still listen to it on my in my spare time. Bury the Light is fantastic. Devil Trigger is fantastic. Subhuman is fantastic. I love the soundtrack. So well done. Great. Resident Evil 2. I never played the original. Once again, I've never played a lot of these originals or the prior games. I come in very late to this sort of stuff, but Resident Evil 2 Remake, I thoroughly enjoyed and was my entry to the Resident Evil franchise. Actually, no, it wasn't. Apologies. My Resident Evil entry game was Resident Evil 7, not 2. 2 came after. My bad. Now, Resident Evil 2, I loved the story. I loved the gameplay. It was very spooky, but after one playthrough, it becomes very bland, which is unfortunate. And I never understood how Claire and Leon can be going through this place at the same time, but never interact each other, and the timeline to me never made any sense, especially with meeting up in one place and then going away, and then Claire immediately coming into the police station and Leon is already down in the sewers. Some things just didn't line up for me chronologically. I don't know if that was just me or if it was something else, if it was just the writing. I don't know, but it looked fantastic. It played fantastic. I loved the game. I loved trying to get all the achievements, trying to get all the secrets, trying to 100% the game was a lot of fun, but the replay value was pretty bad. So I'm going to put Resident Evil 2 at a great. Now, Dredge, an indie title that came out in 2023. I had heard good things about Dredge. I had seen it plastered on YouTube. I'd heard it was one of the greatest indie games of 2023. It got nominated for Indie Game of the Year in 2023, which was really cool. I played for myself. I loved Dredge. It was such a simple concept with an eerie undertone, an interesting story that was played out through interacting with these NPCs that were seemingly innocuous, finding fish that were just eldritch horrors, having secrets in the water that were just never explained throughout the world, and discovering what was going on. And then the secret ending that I will not spoil was so cool. And the main ending of Cthulhu rising from the sea, it was so good for a breakthrough indie title. I loved Dredge. I'm going to put Dredge at a fantastic. Now, Spider-Man 2 was the reason I got a PS5. I traded in my PS4 to get a PS5 because Spider-Man 2 was coming out. I originally loved Spider-Man 2, but it didn't have enough to keep me going. I played it through twice, start to finish, 100% of it twice, start to finish, in about 2 weeks. It was incredibly short. I enjoyed the story, but it could have been better, could have taken some risks, played it very safe. The fact we got to play as Venom, though, I adored. Yuri Lowenthal's performance as Spider-Man, as Peter, absolutely fantastic. He did a fantastic job. Absolutely deserved a nomination for Best Performance. Such a good job. I love the game, but it just didn't have enough to keep me playing for very long. I got 68 hours in it and then stopped playing. Unfortunately, and it's been months since it came out. No DLC, no updates. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know what they've done, but it's unfortunate how Spider-Man 2 went. Could have done better. The combat could have been changed, could have been made more. I'm gonna have to put it at a good. Elden Ring, in my opinion, the best Souls game ever made. It is a culmination of everything From Software has learned over 20 years of making video games, putting all these Souls pieces together to make this massive open world experience for all to enjoy. And it is the easiest Souls game to play, because you can take things at your own pace, skip entire bosses, you can level up beyond the boss's power and just absolutely dog on it. It's amazing, and all the different weapons and combinations and power stancing and different builds and playing with your friends, fighting people, PvP, all comes together so well. The DLC that's been announced, I'm so excited for. I absolutely will stream it and play it on my channel. I absolutely love Elden Ring. I don't think it could have done anything better. I think Elden Ring is a masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. Go down in history as one of the best games, in my opinion, ever made. Baldur's Gate, Game of the Year 2023. I was initially very skeptical of Baldur's Gate. I am not one for turn-based RPGs. I've never played a CRPG. So Baldur's Gate was a first for me. It was many firsts. I fucked my first playthrough of Baldur's Gate. I ended up killing, I think, 3 of the companions because I'm not good at RPG games. I'm notoriously bad at them. But as bad as my first playthrough was, I loved the story. I love the characters, I love the gameplay. I'm a huge fan of D&D myself. I've been wanting to play Dungeons & Dragons for so long. I've been buying books and buying dice to learn and build and play. I've been creating my own worlds, my own characters. It's something I've been very interested in for about a year and a half. So Baldur's Gate was really nice for me because it meant I could finally bring one of my characters to life and play a game of D&D, essentially, in my eyes. And that's what I did, and I'm happy with my ending. I'm happy with how everything turned out in my first game, and I've been playing non-stop. I've got over 500 hours. I've only finished the game 3 times. I love Baldur's Gate. The performances of Karlach, Shadowheart, Will, Astarion, Gale, Minthara, Jaheira, Minsk, fucking Gortash, J.K. Simmons as Ketherick Thorm. Everyone did such a good job. The mocap, the dialogue, the writing, the pacing, everything is so good. I love the side missions actually adding to the story. They weren't just needless fetch quests. I love Baldur's Gate. It is, again, a masterpiece.
What in the sweet hells were you thinking? Activating that lance? I was right there! Gods! Do you have any idea how much that hurt? Well, apparently there's a limit. Somewhere between a nice summer's day and the full concentrated power of the sun! Excuse me? That was the least you could do after dropping a building on me. Next time. No. If there is a next time, I'll be the one aiming the all-powerful weapon. Thank you. Although, I do appreciate you trying to fix your mistake. Just don't do it again. Now, shall we go? Or do you have any other chaos you need to unleash here?
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Again, my entry into Final Fantasy. I never played a Final Fantasy game, never played the original Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was a first for me. I didn't know what to expect going into it, but I had heard really, really, really good things about Final Fantasy VII. And going into it blind, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The characters were interesting, compelling, the setting was interesting. This steampunk fantasy world and setting of Midgar was so interesting, and Cloud as a character, who is Sephiroth, what's going on, what is Aerith, what are these ghost things coming around, and the fact that it is a literal remake in sense of the story was so interesting. I loved it. The combat was not what I expected. Turning a game from a turn-based RPG into an action RPG with elements of strategy in the ATB and the spells and skills and items and limit break and summons, it was so interesting. I loved it so much, and the combat and switching between characters, I found that really enjoyable. However, the side quests were terrible. I skipped over all of them. I hate side quests that are just go here, do this, go and collect 15 of that. I didn't like that. I skipped them. I'll probably never play Final Fantasy VII and go and do those side quests, but I did enjoy Final Fantasy VII for what it was, so I'm going to put it in awesome. Final Fantasy XVI, my second Final Fantasy game, and a game I was skeptical about for a long time because I had heard, if you like Final Fantasy VII, you might have mixed feelings about Final Fantasy XVI. Now, I went into Final Fantasy XVI not knowing anything, didn't play the demo, had seen no trailers about it, had heard nothing about the story, so I went in completely blind. The first 2 hours in just that prologue blew my fucking mind. It was amazing. The story, the characters, Ben Starr's voice acting, how he didn't get Performance of the Year, I will never understand. I think he did so much better than Astarion, I'll be honest. I love Astarion, I love Neil Newman, but I think Ben Starr deserved it more, I'll be completely honest. I love I love the story, I love the characters, making the side characters in Final Fantasy 16 compelling and interesting and a backstory, and having dedicated side quests that make them more interesting and fleshing them out further was so good. I loved the combat, I loved getting all the iconic abilities. The music was god tier. Find the Flame being played 6 different times and then ending the entire game with Jill's theme, My Star, such a beautiful song. I don't know how you can get to that ending being so invested in the story and not cry. It's so good. Final Fantasy 16, absolute masterpiece, and I hope Final Fantasy continues doing what Final Fantasy 16 started. It was so good.
Is someone there?
Mother,
It's you.
what happened here?
He tried to take him from me. Oh, my boy. My darling boy.
Is this the child you made with the Emperor? Why, Mother? Why did you betray us all?
You have no right. Answer him. We took you in, savage. Show some respect for those who raised you. Honorable Elwyn, always thinking of his precious homeland. But what worth is a homeland in a world beset by the Blight?
Father did not seek to protect his country. He sought to protect his people.
A leader's duty is not to protect his people. It is to protect the source of his sovereignty. The noble blood that runs in his family's veins. So long as this bloodline remains unbroken, what does it matter if a nation falls? One can always found another. Unlike him, I did my duty. I preserved my line. I bore a son of the noblest blood, to whom the whole world might kneel. That is why I gave Rosaria to Sambrek, that I might join my line with the Lesages and birth a savior of this benighted land, blessed by both Bahamut and the Phoenix!
You sold your country for a child.
Why did he need another? You had Joshua.
I had nothing. You were always your father's son, so very strong and bold and daring, and yet you failed to awaken. Would that Joshua had been granted 1/10 of your strength? Oh! How the nobles laughed that Elwyn's firstborn was surely the son of a concubine, and my own, not long for this world. The shame of it! The shame of being slandered by one's inferiors! How could you ever know how that feels? It should have been you! Why didn't the Phoenix choose you?
Joshua's every waking moment was spent trying to shoulder the burden that you and the Phoenix and the Duchy foisted on him. That's why I became his shield. To help bear the weight. But what did you do? You betrayed your own blood and surrendered your son to his fate!
Joshua, my darling boy. I never meant to hurt him. The soldiers' orders were clear. He was to be spared. Why did you survive when the only one I truly cared for died?
What? Have you not looked out of the window? Joshua is here! The Phoenix lives on! He's battling Bahamut as we speak!
Firewatch, another indie title. Firewatch was an interesting game because you are completely isolated and alone for the entire game. Not once do you see another character that you can interact with. Everything is done over a radio. Just you, Henry, and your aide, Delilah. Just alone, keeping watch over the summer as a way for Henry to escape the fear and depressing situation of his wife being forced to be with her family in Australia for treatment of her dementia. I think it was dementia. It was A very interesting story, had a very sad resolution. I loved Firewatch for what it was. The story of the kid and his dad, and the mystery of someone watching them through the entire time that they were together was very spooky. I loved Firewatch. I'm gonna put Firewatch in awesome. God of War 2018, my first God of War game, once again. I had watched bits and pieces of God of War 2018 going into it, and it looked so cool that it was one of my first games that I got when I got my PS4. Playing it was so much fun, the combat was so much fun, using the axe and then getting the Blades of Chaos. I didn't know what they were when I first got them, but the music and everything else around them, Kratos being so clearly upset and concerned over Atreus in that moment, was gut-wrenching. I love the narrative and Kratos keeping quiet about everything, never really speaking his mind, just sort of keeping it to himself and being reserved, was so interesting because you could still connect with him and Atreus without many words being spoken of his thoughts. And then the story with Balder and Freya was interesting. I was throughout the entire game, I was wondering, how is this going to conclude? Is Freya going to die? Are we going to have to kill Balder? How are we going to kill Balder? And then when it concluded, it was interesting. And then continuing on from that with all the extra stuff, just perpetually with Snow, was so interesting. I loved playing it. I 100%ed God of War 2018. I'm putting God of War in fantastic. God of War Ragnarok. It took me a while to play God of War Ragnarok. I played it in 2020. I started in 2022 and then finished it in 2023. Took me a long time to finish it. I got to a point where I didn't want to play it anymore. But then I picked it back up, finished it. I adored the story. The set pieces were amazing. The acting was amazing. The gameplay was a lot of fun, even if it was still mostly the same. Getting Draupnir was hype as fuck. I loved getting Draupnir. I think God of War Ragnarok is on par with God of War 2018. Hi-Fi Rush, the first rhythm game I have ever played. I do not like rhythm games. I can keep a rhythm, I can keep a beat, but good God, fighting and keeping on beat through the entire time was something I had to learn while playing. But it was a lot of fun. The learning curve was a lot of fun. It wasn't too difficult. It wasn't overly easy. It was still very challenging. Getting the different companion aids and abilities was a lot of fun. Mixing things up in combat with the different beat attacks was a lot of fun. The music was really good and the voice acting was great. The story was simple, but it's what it needed to be. The story didn't need to be over the top or do some really introspective, soul-searching journey. Just keep it simple, get it through it, keep it lighthearted. That's all it needed to be. The story was predictable, but I don't mind. It did what it was supposed to. And the art style was incredible. Having this almost cel-shaded 3D cutting into 2D at some points and then dropping down to 30 frames per second as a stylistic choice was something I'd never seen in a game before. I've seen it in things like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, but I've never seen it in a game, and I found it so interesting and an interesting way to do mixed media in a game. So I'm going to put Hi-Fi Rush in awesome. I love Hi-Fi Rush. Hyper Light Drifter, a game I never finished. I loved Hyper Light Drifter. It's got a great art style. The combat is a lot of fun. But I could never figure out what to do or where to go. I never got to finish it, which is really unfortunate. I loved the music. The ambience was so good. The fact that you can tell a story without a single bit of dialogue, spoken or not. So interesting. And the setting is interesting, and that cutscene at the start was incredible. I loved Hyper Light Drifter. I loved what it set out to do. I think it's absolutely slept on. I'm putting it in great. Inside. Now, Inside is an interesting game. very spooky, very interesting, and it tells, yet again, a story with no spoken dialogue and no written dialogue at all. The platforming became a bit old pretty quickly, especially with some things near the end, but it had some interesting twists here and there to get through some points that were a little monotonous, like having the shockwave coming through, and that section only lasted about 5 minutes, which was all it needed to be, and then it never shows up again. But it has so many questions that don't get answered, and it's what I love about it. What's going on? Why are these people doing this? What are these robots? Why is there this shockwave? What is this facility? Why did I turn into a giant testicle? It's interesting, it's compelling. I love playing Inside. I 100%ed it and got the alternate ending. So strange. I'm putting Inside at good. It could have had some things answered to make it better, in my opinion. Just Cause 3. Now, I had never played a Just Cause 3, nor had I heard of it, but I was told by a friend of mine several years ago that Just Cause 3 was amazing, and it's explosions galore, and it's just chaos incarnate. So I was like, alright, I'll pick it up, give it a shot. And when I played it, my mind was blown. I loved Just Cause 3. I loved the explosions, I loved the freedom. The story was whatever, who cares? You don't play Just Cause for the story. But it was so ridiculous and outlandish and comical, but it served itself so well because it didn't take itself seriously. It did what it set out to do, and it did it fucking perfectly. The DLCs were so good, adding new ways to destroy things in fun, spectacular ways. In my opinion, the mech in the Mech Assault DLC was a little overpowered because you could just not be stopped and blow everything to shit in a single punch. It's a power fantasy, a great de-stressing game. I 100%ed it, loved the story, I've played it so many times. It will forever hold a place in my heart. It's one of my favorite titles. Also, this cover image right here, I've got to point out, is completely fucking ridiculous. It's got a train coming out of the explosion and a statue crumbling, and then I think a jet and a helicopter and a bus in an explosion in the air with a helicopter in the background that in-game shoots missiles is shooting bullets instead. It's so dumb. I love it. I love Rico Rodriguez. I love it. I'm putting it awesome. Now, Just Cause 4, the disappointing sequel to Just Cause 3. The new grappling hook abilities were interesting and gimmicky, but they were not enough to hold my attention. The new realistic, quote-unquote realistic look and the grittiness was not as fun. The explosions looked worse, in my opinion. The firefights and the gunplay was toned down. The guns felt like I was shooting them with pillows. It was so annoying. And then the weather system that they had promoted the entire game on turned out to be incredibly trash, and it was just, you can spawn this weather system here and it follows this set path out and then disappears and becomes useless. If they didn't actually spawn randomly in random locations and destroy the countryside, which was really unfortunate because that's what I was looking forward to. I still enjoyed Just Cause 4. The story was uninspired and uninteresting. I'm going to put Just Cause 4 at good. Katana Zero, an interesting indie premise, a side-scrolling hack and slash, but you have limited life, you can slow down time, and if you get hit, you die. Had an interesting story of time travel and death and redemption, and the multiple endings was really interesting. Being able to get the different blades in the game was difficult but gratifying. I played it completely blind, but when I played it, I found it so interesting. And then the dialogue options, being able to change the course of the game, and the secret boss fight. The secret boss fight felt like a proper boss fight. It felt like a Souls boss. It was difficult, it was challenging, it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm putting Katana Zero in awesome. Lethal Company, the absolute massive success of a single Roblox developer, Fari, who is 19 years old, absolute genius Zekas is. He did an incredible job. Lethal Company, so simple, yet so incredible. The modern community coming together to make some amazing additions to this already incredible game. Unfortunately, I don't have any friends to play Lethal Company with. I played it online a few times. Some people played it. I have played it with others a fair amount, and it's so much better with friends. I gotta recommend that if you play it with friends. I thoroughly enjoyed Lethal Company. I think it's amazing and deserves everything it's gotten. I'm putting it in fantastic. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Now, I've never played a Metal Gear Rising game. Sorry, a Metal Gear game. I did play Metal Gear 5, Phantom Pains, but I hated it and stopped playing after like 5 hours because I got stuck. But Metal Gear Rising was a lot of fun, a great hack and slash game. And the Zandatsu feature was a lot of fun. The free cut mechanic was incredibly interesting, especially for a game that came out in 2012 or 2013. It was so much fun. We all know the memes of Metal Gear Rising. Maxor's video on the incorrect summary being an absolute cultural phenomena. All the people streaming it, all the stuff that's come from it, all the music has been absolutely fantastic. I'm putting in fantastic. I love Metal Gear Rising, and it will forever be one of my favorite games ever. Shovel Knight, a small game made by, I think it was Blue Yacht. A throwback to the old ways of the past. Simple pixel 16-bit graphics, simple side scroll with very basic mechanics. The progression was a lot of fun, the bosses were a lot of fun, the levels themselves were so much fun. I found myself going through levels all the time because I just enjoyed playing them, going back to those old Mario days, but having a twist, and this Shovel Knight is so unique. I loved Shovel Knight. I loved the DLCs, giving a different take on the story and the setting. It's great. I love Shovel Knight. Bloodborne, yet another reason I got my PS4 way back when. Bloodborne is something special. A Souls game where aggression is key for once. The bosses and the story and the setting of Bloodborne speaks to my soul. I love the gothic British setting of Yharnam and the eldritch horror story of the two colleges and the insight and Hunter's Dream. So interesting and compelling, and having the amygdala and the great old ones, and the hardest boss fight I've ever fucking fought being the Orphan of Kos. Oh my god, that thing sent me into a spiral of rage. However, I love Bloodborne. I really hope it gets either a second game or a remake or a remaster or even a port to the PC. Please, FromSoft. It's been almost 10 years. I'm putting Bloodborne in a masterpiece. Absolutely a masterpiece. I love it so much. Now, Outlast 2. Outlast 2, I had never played the original. I played Outlast 2 before I played Outlast 1. It was honestly genuinely terrifying. I had gone in with my hopes pretty high. I love horror. I love horror games. I love being scared out of my pants. And Outlast did exactly that. Martyr's theme through the entire game was absolutely spine-chilling. I loved the chases. I loved the hiding. The night vision and audio mechanics were so good. There was actually a point where I had to stop playing. I was too scared. This was a few years ago. I'm not a big baby anymore. I'm putting Outlast in awesome. Palworld, the indie breakthrough of 2024. It's been absolutely massive, and I've been playing it in my spare time. I won't be streaming Palworld anymore. I've been running into too many problems with it, and seems like it's going down on the receding end, so I think that playthrough is just going to end where it is. But it is a lot of fun, and for what it is, it's really, really good. I've only run into 2 major bugs, being stuck through walls and pushed through the floor in some bosses, and that's it. For an indie game in early access, it is phenomenal and has so much potential. I really, really hope the devs keep working on it, because it's really good. And I've seen all the controversies about it being rips off of Pokemon, which I can understand, but to some degrees there are some points where you kind of have to copy, because you can only have so many iterations of, say, an electric mouse. or a flower, or a water duck. And please, by God, do not talk about how Nintendo needs to sue them. If Game Freak were to sue Palworld for infringement of copyright on their Pokemon IP, they would have already. So it's well within their right to make this close to Pokemon, but not exactly Pokemon. But yeah, I really hope Palworld does better. I love Palworld. It did such a great job. I'm putting it in great. Portal 2. Now, I played Portal 1, not knowing what it was about, and loved it. And I played Portal 2 and absolutely fell in love. I played so much Portal 2, it's not funny. I have over 200 hours in Portal 2 just in the story. I played it over and over and over and over again. It was a lot of fun. I loved the puzzles. I loved Wheatley. I just love Aperture Science. Everything about it. It's honestly, it's my childhood. I played it when I was 12, 13. Played it for so long. I will never not remember Portal 2. It's going fantastic for me. Power Simulator. Now, Power Simulator is, I think it's something special. It's such a simple game, a simple premise, doesn't do anything crazy, but still has a story that I like to tell in the background, while also giving you this nice, relaxing experience of the satisfaction of power washing. I played it when I was personally not in a very good spot, or a worse spot than I am, and it provided some level of comfort to me. The ending felt really good to me, with all the messages popping up and the music playing over the credits and getting to see all my work. I will be honest, I cried because I thought it was really beautiful what this simple little game had done for me over 120 hours. I loved Power Simulator. I'm really sad to see that it's just becoming a cash grab game. Here's this $15 DLC for 3 maps. It's really unfortunate. They were doing so well. I'm really sad to see that they've gone so low, so I've got to put it in great. I would put it in awesome if the DLCs weren't so predatory. Now, Resident Evil 3. I like Resident Evil 3. I know it's not the best Resident Evil game or Resident Evil remake. It's short, it's simple, it's to the point. The story is pretty Nemesis was interesting. I loved Jill and Carlos. The guns felt nice to shoot. The zombies were fun. It wasn't scary, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm putting it at awesome. Red Dead 2. Now, I had never played Red Dead 1, and I still haven't, but I heard that Red Dead 2 is a prequel, so I got it during a free point. An Xbox Game Pass, played it for a bit, and then lost it. I couldn't play it again. So I bought it and played it to completion. I think it is so beautiful. It's visually stunning. However, Rockstar needs to do 2 things. 1, change its fucking movement mechanics, because it is so floaty and frustrating having to walk into something and then stop, turn, and then walk to get around it. I don't like Rockstar's movement mechanics, and I'm hoping with GTA 6 that stuff fucking changes, because it's so frustrating to me. But the thing that struck me the most with Red Dead 2 is the story, and the story of Arthur Morgan and John Marston. Those characters were so good and interesting, and the entire gang always talking and interacting and having bits of dialogue off to themselves. As much as I absolutely hate Micah, his character is so good, and he's a character that you love to hate. I love that the different parts of the story and different dialogue options change depending on your good or bad honor. And then the ending is so beautiful, and even if it's bad for Arthur, the fact that he died, and he died the way he did, I think it's so poetic, and he died the best way he could have. Even if it meant dying knowing that the that the gang was disbanded and that Micah and Dutch were in league with evil together. But he died knowing that John and his family were safe. So I think that's poetic beauty. I'm putting in a masterpiece just for the story. Now, Resi 4. I was lucky enough to play the original Resident Evil 4 without spoilers first. Normally I'm not a fan of playing all the games because some of those clunky controls turn me off to games a little bit. Just personally, because I love freedom of movement. I love being able to move freely and not having these problems with controls. But I didn't have a problem with that in Resident Evil 4. It felt so natural after I got used to it. And I got used to it really quickly because I had to. That opening section with the village is such a good way to ingratiate the player with how the rest of the game will feel. Will you struggle with this area, or will you pick it up quickly and survive? It's a great way to do it, and then continuing out the story with these quips and funny moments and great bits of dialogue between Ashley and Leon, and having Ada in the background doing her secret agent thing was so interesting, and I love it so much. Resident Evil 4 for the original GameCube is going in a masterpiece. Now, Resident Evil 4 Remake, I think, is the definitive version to play Resident Evil 4. However, there are a few things that I'm not the biggest fan of, some changes in dialogue. I love that Ashley is more of a character and less of a damsel in distress. I think that's a much better change, personally. I hate having characters that are just, oh, what was me, save me, Leon. So I'm gonna put Resident Evil 4 Remake in Fantastic. Resident Evil 8. Now, I loved Resident Evil 7. I played it before I played Resident Evil 8. I liked Resident Evil 7, I liked the story, I liked Ethan. I enjoyed Resident Evil 8 originally, but upon replaying it, I don't like it. The story is clunky, it makes no sense, some of the dialogue is odd and weird. Miranda is an awful villain. The gameplay is still just as good as 7, if not better. The graphics feel a little muddy and feel a little bit of a step up and down in some ways compared to 7. The replay value is insane. I've gotten, I think, 80 hours in 2 separate editions of it. I'm going to put Resident Evil 8 in awesome. Actually, I'm going to put it in great. Soma, another slept on horror title that scared the absolute shit out of me. I love Soma. It's a great story about humanity and what it means to be human and the struggle of surviving an apocalypse, and what would you do in this scenario? What would you do if there were 2 of you in this horrible situation? Would you kill him, or would you let him live for however long he has left in this terrifying scenario? Set out what it needed to do, created a very interesting, thought-provoking story. I love Soma. It's going in awesome. Now, Stray, I had heard a lot of good things about. I didn't play it on release, but I had heard it's a fantastic indie title. You gotta play it. It's so good. The cat is adorable. And then when I played it, I immediately fell in love upon reaching the slum. It looked so good. All the in-game cutscenes, the dialogue between the characters that don't, for a protagonist that doesn't talk because he's a fucking cat. The story of B12 and escaping the city and what the fuck happened to humanity. It's so interesting and adorable, and the ending is so, it's just nice. I loved it. I'm putting Stray in fantastic. Now, Subnautica, a game I played since early access. I played it back in 2016, around its original release, and played it through to its final release in 2018, and I loved it. I absolutely loved Subnautica. To me, it felt like, at the time, sort of Minecraft-y, like going around exploring this world, collecting resources to get better and survive and get stronger and just become autonomous. And then later exploring the different biomes and finding these wreckages, finding out what happened to, I think it was called the Degasi, going to the Aurora and seeing the destruction inside, getting the prawn suit and the Cyclops, going into the deep depths, finding a cure, seeing the Sunbeam getting shut down was fucking incredible. And then after so long sitting in this ocean, surviving, making friends with these fish sometimes, and sometimes going out of your way to murder the sea leviathan, was so good that upon entering that rocket to leave, I let out a few tears. It was a beautiful ending. And then the little joke at the end with the outstanding credit because of the rocket ship was really funny. I'm putting Subnautica in awesome. I love Subnautica. Now I'm going to skip over The Last of Us 2 and just jump straight to The Last of Us Part 1. Now, I'd heard a lot of good things about The Last of Us. I'd heard it's a masterpiece. I'd heard it's so good. The story is great. The character's great. The music is great. And I hadn't played it for so long. I know it came out in 2013 and got remastered for some reason on the PS4 in 2014. I didn't get a PS4 until 2020. And that's when I finally played and experienced The Last of Us for myself. And they were right. It is a masterpiece. Absolutely. The story, the characters, Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson as Joel and Ellie. Absolutely phenomenal. I love Ashley Johnson as a huge fan of Critical Role. I love her characters in Critical Role, and I love every role she's in. She's such a good actor. Troy Baker, absolutely phenomenal voice actor, did a fantastic job as Joel. I love The Last of Us. There are a few things going back and playing it now that I'm not a big fan of, but it's more because of it's a product of its time. Last of Us, absolute masterpiece. Now, Last of Us 2, I think, is almost a masterpiece. It suffers from some pacing issues and some story choices that I think could have been better. I think fleshing out Abby before everything, so playing as Abby more towards the beginning, at least before she goes and kills Joel, or after she kills Joel, just playing as Abby and then switching to Ellie would have been a better idea, because then you can actually feel for Abby rather than being fuck you Abby for the entire game and then going I don't want to play as Abby through the entire section and then rushing through her story and not picking it up. I feel like that's an oversight, but I still think the story is great. The gameplay is a lot of fun, even if it is a little bit outdated because Naughty Dog refuses to let go of the way they make games. But I loved The Last of Us. The Last of Us 2 remake didn't need to happen. I do like that they added a roguelite mode. I thought that was a lot of fun for the 3 hours that I played it. But I played the absolute shit out of Last of Us 2. I platinumed it. It's going in fantastic. Now, Uncharted, I had played Uncharted 4 before I played the other 3, but I want to do this in order. So, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, I thought was a lot of fun. I love the relationship between Sully and Nathan and Elena through the story. The villains or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's more about the exploration and the story and the sense of adventure, which I thought was awesome. Uncharted 2, absolute classic. It cannot be understated how good Uncharted 2 is. It looks timeless. The voice acting is phenomenal. The story is interesting. It's a much bigger, better sense of adventure and longer sense of adventure than Uncharted 1 ever was. And for that, it's fantastic. Now, Uncharted 3 suffers some issues of pacing and some gameplay choices that I don't entirely agree with. But I did thoroughly enjoy it. I just feel like it was a little bit too long. So I'm going to put it in awesome. Now, Uncharted 4, Drake's Fortune, was my first Uncharted game. Yeah, I got it when I got my PS4. I had been looking forward to playing it. I love the story. I love the cutscenes. I love that it's a story of two brothers rather than a sense of adventure. I mean, it's a bit of both, but it's more a story of two brothers and redemption and getting out of this life, finally. and it does everything perfectly. The story is great. I like that the final boss is just a sword fight between Nate and Rafe. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I love it. The music I loved. To me, it's a reminder of something special. It takes me back to a part of my life where playing these games I felt very comforted in a time where I was very unhappy. So Uncharted 4 goes into fantastic. Undertale, absolute cultural phenomenon. I adored Undertale. I think it's an absolute masterpiece in what it does. The story is great, the characters are great, the music is god tier, absolute meme-worthy music and characters. Sans, I shit you not, I used to fight Sans for fun. Back when it came out, I was in my school. I don't have to feel like a brag. In my school, I used to fight Sans with the music up, and people would know I was fighting Sans, and my friends and some people around my friends would gather around to watch me fight Sans because I was the only one that could actually do it. And then it came to a point where people that knew of me would ask me if I could fight Sans for them because they wanted to do the genocide run. Granted, it was a few people that I knew that were around me and my group of friends, but I will never forget the way Undertale made me feel, the way the music made me feel, the story. It's a masterpiece. I love it. Now finally we can get to Doom. Now Doom 2016 was my first Doom game, and I had heard great things about it. So I bought it, loaded it up, and my mind was blown. I love rock and metal. I was not expecting an entirely new genre of violence. I loved Doom, the gameplay was so much fun, the progression felt good, the story was serviceable. It doesn't matter, you don't play Doom for the story. I mean, are you kidding me? Doom is fantastic. Now finally, Doom Eternal. It is a step above what Doom 2016 did. The boss fights were great, the music was even better, the new abilities, new weapons, the sense of movement and being completely free form and being able to do every encounter in any way with complete freedom of movement was so good, and I loved it so much. There was only a few letdowns for me, being the bosses. Now the bosses themselves during their initial fights, absolutely fantastic, absolutely loved fighting them. The Doom Hunter, the Marauder, the Gladiator, all fun by themselves, but then when the Doom Hunter and the Marauder come back as regular enemies, that's where I get disappointed. I love it when there's a really cool boss and then it's just a cool boss. I hate it when a boss becomes a regular enemy. Dark Souls 3 did it with the Crystal Sage. When you get to the Grand Archives, there's another Crystal Sage, but that only happens once. And for the lore, it makes sense that there would be a Crystal Sage there because it's the place of learning of magic. Still not a huge fan of it, and you can skip right by that. But in Doom Eternal, it's unavoidable and it gets annoying, especially since the Marauder slows down the combat to a grinding halt because you have to wait for him to trigger before you can attack him, before you can deal damage. It gets old. But everything else is impeccable. I love Doom Eternal. Fantastic. Resident Evil 7, my first Resident Evil game. I adored Resident Evil 7. I played it to shit. I love the story of the Bakers. I love Ethan Winters' story of trouble and triumph, and it's an absolute David versus Goliath story, and it does it so well, and I enjoy it so much. It feels just on the border of unrealistic and impossible and outlandish, but it doesn't quite exceed that. Of course, everything is cartoonish and crazy and insane and impossible, but in a way, it still sort of feels like Ethan would be able to do these things, if that makes sense. At least in 7. In 8, it becomes, no, bro, just stop. But yeah, 7, Absolutely loved it. Fantastic. Now, Shadow of the Colossus, a game I had previously watched on YouTube before I played it, and I fell in love immediately. I am a sucker for huge spectacle bosses. I love the fact that you can climb all over them and defeat them your own way. You don't have to defeat them the way the devs intended. And this massive open landscape with literally nothing in it except some animals, some salamanders, tortoises, and birds is so interesting. The fact that it ties into the lore is so compelling. What happened here? Why is this here? Who is Dorman? What are these colossi? Why are you fighting them? Is this really going to help us? Why is there this masked dude trying to kill me? Why did I get this sword? Why am I being attacked with tentacles whenever I kill them? It's so interesting. They never explain it, but you can sort of infer what happens. And the fact that it's a spiritual successor to Ico, another game by the same devs, is amazing. Shadow of the Colossus, fantastic. And that brings us to the end of the tier list. I love video games. All these video games here I really enjoy playing. I'd love to know what you guys think of the tier list, if you guys would change any of the positions, what you think about certain choices, certain design aspects, certain games, which ones you love, why you love them. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Yeah, gaming is something special, and it holds a special place in my heart. And if you love gaming too, please hit the like and subscribe button. You'll see more of it twice every week. You can also check out my Twitch channel. I go live every Monday and Thursday, provided I don't run into any issues, at around 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Yeah. If you like this video, check out my VODs. I have them uploaded to my channel just after the day after I stream. If you want me to do more games, give me comment down which games you want me to play, or what other things you'd like to see me do, anything you'd like me to react to. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Yeah. Have a good day.